Welcome to Bougie and Boring, the spa business podcast that proves success doesn't have to be stressful. My name is Amanda Louisa. I'm a spa owner and a coach, and around here, bougie means high-end and well-paid. Boring means drama-free and simple. Together, that's how you build a spa that's smooth, profitable, and actually fun to run. Thank you so much for being here. Let's get right to it. Hi, Pamela. Thank you so much for coming back on to Bougie and Boring, a spa business podcast. I'm so excited to have you back because today we're going to be talking about something that I've been talking to my coaching clients a lot about recently, especially, which is a marketing funnel. And that is something that I feel like that's most of what you do when you're creating a meta ad of any kind. And so I was hoping that I can just ask you a bunch of questions about it from the perspective of someone who might know that it exists, but not really know much else other than that. How does that sound?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Yeah. Okay, so I just want to start really simple with when you say funnel, like a marketing funnel, what does
Hmm.
that actually mean? Like, explain to me, like I've never heard it before.
Yeah. I think when I first started doing ads for my own business, for my own service-based business, I think same thing, like I heard funnel and was like, this sounds very, I wouldn't say like abstract, but like complicated because you kind of get the idea. You want to funnel clients into like your business ideally, but within like practical applications, it's more about like setting up the structures to make that happen, especially like digitally. Since I know like our service-based businesses are like so word of mouth based, I'd say like think about that just but applying it into a digital world and like figuring out how to get people from like cold, never heard of your business into the treatment room, like doing a service. And so, like, all the steps between, I'd say all of that is probably the best explanation of like a funnel. Um, and so I think like what I was just talking about, getting back to like word of mouth is like, okay, like how do I get my business to somebody who's never heard of it before? Like what structures can I put in place? Same thing, just applying that more to the digital interface. And that could be not necessarily just like with meta ad campaigns. That could be like with Google ads. That could be like setting up your website. So there's like different aspects and components to a funnel, but typically ads are a big part of it.
Yeah, and that you actually answered my next question about it,
Okay.
which is how does a service-based business like ours use something that is digital, right? We know the basics of, okay, be on social media. Okay, maybe have a Google My Business account and a website that's not linked. It's not a Facebook page, it's an actual
Yeah.
website.
Yeah.
And so when talking about our service-based businesses, what you're saying for a funnel and bringing it into the digital world. I love that you described it like that. That's so genius because that's essentially what it is like bringing it from someone who's never heard of you to laying on your table.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Exactly. Ideally, that would be like the completion of like if we're gonna get really technical.
yes, yes. So why do you think spa owners would skip this step, like of having a funnel and just rely on word of mouth or like posting on Instagram?
Yeah, I think things have changed, to be honest. Like when I talk with different clients, like when I run meta ad campaigns, like sometimes they've run ads before, sometimes they've boosted posts, sometimes they've hired someone in the past, and I think um just things are changing, especially like with meta, for example, like in their Andromeda algorithm. I think just, and then the volume of other businesses that are also advertising. And so that's really what like budget spend is about, is making sure that you're giving enough to Meta so that they can run your campaign enough, and so that way the right people can see it because you're sometimes competing with others. So getting back to that, I think like I remember speaking with someone and they were saying like, oh, like I used to be able to like boost a post like 5 years ago or maybe 10 years ago and just like have that like bring in a bunch of clients. But now, just unfortunately, things are like a bit different with the way things work and the effectiveness of that. And also just like the things that you got to like set up to make that be effective. And I think one of those things is like just like the level of how many people are using ads, and so using it effectively, I think is a big component of that, and learning and being like aware. And so I think like when you're trying to create like a funnel, and if you're like, I'll just throw some money into like boosting a post, I think the intention is great and I think the idea is great, but then sometimes people are left disappointed when like it doesn't necessarily pan out as always like how it's planned. And I think the same thing could be said for like when I was getting back to like word of mouth advertising or doing other advertisements, like having a referral plan in place. Like a referral plan, I think really boosts that word of mouth advertising. And so to help like funnel and get people in. And so same thing, we're kind of thinking in similar structures with using like digital ad campaigns to kind of funnel people in. And that might be having like a lead magnet, that might be having like a discount code, that might be having something at the top of the funnel to get people interested. And then using like ads to target those right people that would be interested in your business, and then moving them further down along the funnel until eventually like they're in the treatment room getting something done. So I think that's where it just the confusion sometimes lies. It's like things have changed, and unfortunately, it's not just like as simple as just like throwing some extra money behind like a post that was performing well. Yeah, and having to kind of like move forward from there.
Yeah, I do hear, and I bet you hear it more than I do, but I've heard a lot of spa owners say, I've tried at Google, or not Google, but Facebook ads is typically what they call it as the all-encompassing, meta ads. I've
Uh-huh.
tried Facebook ads, I've tried ads, and I feel like it didn't work for me, or where did my money go, or something to that effect. So is it usually like an ads problem, do you think, or is it a funnel problem?
I think it can be more of a funnel problem at times, because like I think in the beginning, like when you said, when you're like, oh, like I spent money, like I should be getting something in return. It's like, yes, like in a perfect world, that should how it is. It's like I gave you my money, Facebook, like for your ads. Like why aren't you sending me the right people? Um, and so actually, like with the new like update to the algorithm, we're kind of seeing like some better results where you don't have to like as target into your audience as much as before, but it's like learning, but it's still like quite a bit of hand holding and like testing audiences and testing creatives. Um, and sorry if I get off, sorry if I get off like the train of thought that I was thinking of, but I think sorry, I have to circle back to the question now. Can you repeat the rest of the question?
Yeah, no, it's okay. So a lot of times spa owners will ask or will tell me like
There you go.
this didn't work for me or like where did my money go? And I'm just curious if you think it's an ads problem or a funnel problem.
Yeah. So yeah, that's when I would say like, and so that's what, sorry, I was getting back to like things are getting better. Like if you just spent money on ads, and sometimes like Meta's new algorithm is like can learn a little bit better and like deliver and see who's responding to your Meta ads or your Facebook ads in particular. And when I say Meta ads, it's both Instagram and Facebook combined, and even like Messenger and WhatsApp. Um,
Oh, I didn't know
tip
that.
Yeah, and so Meta just like encompasses all those companies. And so they'll put ad placements in all those places. But sometimes that's not where you want your ads to be seen. That's not where your target audience lives. And so
Hmm.
that's kind of the thing is like, okay, like I gave Meta my money and like made a post, like why, isn't that kind of making things work? And that's where the funnel starts to come in, is like tweaking things to make sure like your ideal audience is seen, that like the ad and the copy that's working for your ideal audience, and hooking those right clients, and that you're not just getting bots. because that's like another thing that can sometimes happen in this day and age of like tech is like, oh, like, okay, cool, like, great, I got some leads, but it was like one of them was like a bot or so I know when I started my business, I'm trying to think now, back in 2019, I remember I started advertising with an ad agency as well on my own. And I was giving them, I think it was like $500 a month. And so I was like, this should be okay. Like, and so I sometimes think also like with ad agencies, and that's the reason why I like to work with other service-based businesses, um, is because like I was like, oh, I know the frustration. I like know what it's like to give a company your money, and they don't realize that like you don't just like have unlimited spend.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so I think that's I remember like doing that and I was like, why am I not like getting more bookings that way? And so ended up discontinuing that because they just didn't, I think, get what I needed for my service-based business to get people in as well. And I think that's something for service-based businesses like the spa funnel needs to be different than like say something for like a restaurant or even like even if it like it's like a doctor's office or I'm trying to think or like an e-commerce brand. Funnels are more
Mm,
like nuanced.
definitely, it definitely matters. So many things factor into it, things that I don't
Yeah, it's
even
just a
think
little bit
we
more
realize.
complicated than back
Yeah.
in the day. Yeah, so it's not necessarily just like a money problem.
Yeah.
When you think like you're like, oh, I'll just like throw money at the problem. I'd say
Yes.
it's more of like a technical funnel problem in this day and age.
Okay. That's good to
Hmm.
know. So I know that it's important to make tweaks along the way. I think that there is this really big kind of like what you described, like this misconception that if I just put $1 in, I'll get like two, three, $4 out, right? And in a beautiful world, that's exactly what we would want, but it doesn't happen. You don't just put $1 in and hope and then that's it. There's
Hmm.
like so many things that go into it, right? And you can continue to tweak your funnel until it is giving you more out than what you put in.
Hmm.
And so, at what point would you say you know that a funnel is working? About how long would you say it takes for it to work? And then when do you know that it is working?
Yeah, so usually what's ideal is like you want to test like every aspect of your funnel in the sense that like okay, so you get your funnel up and running and then um typically there's certain like KPIs or metrics like when you open like your ad account, you'll see like the numbers there. There's some typical ones we're looking for after so many people have viewed your ad. And so from there that's typically what you're kind of looking for is just like adjusting. And so the other difference is depending on like your budget, you can have a couple of different kinds of ad campaigns running at once. One for like cold traffic, so people understand like your business and like are aware of your business to begin with it. And then after that, afterwards or at the same time, depending on your budget, you can always then like start to focus on clients that are like more in the interests of your business or that have actually like maybe clicked on the ad before um, or have engaged with the ad in some way or watched it long enough. So any of that sort of like engagement is also like an aspect of the funnel because you can start like running a couple of things at once or in sequence and retarget some audiences or you understand some audiences are better and some interests are better. And so that's kind of the testing that happens to like make your funnel improve over time and do better over time. So there's, and then also the testing of your actual like ad and the copy that comes along with it. Sometimes tweaking that can improve those metrics. And so by looking at those metrics after certain people have viewed, then you can kind of decide at what point in your funnel do we need to like tweak a little bit more. And typically you want to do things one at a time, because if there's too many things like done at once, then it might confuse the meta algorithm. And when
Yeah.
it's delivering, it might start to like change like your outcomes a little bit more from than what you wanted, and then you don't really know then to like where to assess from there. So you don't want to like suddenly shut off a bunch of campaigns and turn around a bunch of campaigns and things like that. So you just want to tweak slowly but methodically, so that way things are working out. So that's usually what you're looking at, is just like slowly testing the different parts of your funnel. And when I say slowly, it doesn't mean have to be like week by week. Usually like sometimes 3 days, sometimes 5 days if it's like a really small audience, but typically about a window of 3 days. And then go in there and tweak again. And usually in the meantime, you can kind of set up different things in your funnel, so that way, once it comes to that point, you're like, okay, cool. Like, I've seen what's working well, I've seen what's not working well. I can swap some things in and then reassess.
That is so intricate. And it's a lot. And I think that a lot of spa owners don't realize what all goes into it. And I will say, so you run my ads
Hmm.
for my spa, and because I live close to my spa, I can see them
Yeah.
sometimes.
Yeah.
And so I always see when you tweak something, which feels like almost every day, every other day. And so
Uh-huh.
I'm seeing all those tweaks, and it's so fascinating to me as like a viewer to see that, and then to also see how it reflects on our books as well. Um, when the people do, I mean, it's so interesting because when you're a service-based business, it's not, like you said, it's not like e-com where people can just go online and then purchase it and it shows up on their doorstep. It's so different, right? People can click on the ad, but then they can also reach out to the business itself, and then they can, you know, send us a DM on Instagram, and like all the things. Um, so that's so fascinating that you're saying all of this, because I'm seeing it from both sides, as
Yeah.
like the client and as the owner.
Yeah.
So what mistake do you feel like a lot of small business owners are making when they try to set up a funnel, right? Because a funnel is not necessarily just entirely something that someone who does the meta ads sets up, right? So like if I came to you as someone new, I could technically have the whole funnel already like ready to go and set up. You and I kind of collaborate a little bit back and forth on like the funnel that you use for my spa. And it's my understanding that a funnel is something, it's essentially like a Word document that walks you through all those things, from like someone who's never heard of you to someone who's literally laying on the table in front of you, and
Hmm.
like the journey from point A to point B, or maybe even point like EFG, you know?
Yes. Yes. Uh-huh.
Um, and so what do you feel like you have noticed is the biggest mistake that you see spa owners make when they first try to set up a funnel?
Ooh, okay. This is something that I feel like you and I have covered in when I like have been running your ads, is sometimes Meta really prioritizes people staying like on the app. And
Mm,
so sometimes I think like you can do something called like a standard conversion. And a standard conversion can be like a lead event where you get a message for like a lead, that they filled out a form and they're interested in booking. And what's nice is like you can tweak that where you can have some qualifying questions to make sure they're not just like spammy thoughts,
yeah,
and interested clients, or and you can even like add the link to book there. Other times like you can create, like for an e-commerce, like you can optimize, create a campaign to optimize for sales. And in that sense, usually these funnels, these two that I just explained, you're just going directly for a sale or directly for a lead. So it's a shorter funnel. And so Meta typically has, because that stays more um, on Meta, because usually you can purchase e-commerce stuff like in the Meta app.
right.
Yeah, sometimes it'll prioritize those things. And because the funnel's shorter, the algorithm will learn better about what
Mm,
is getting clicks and what's actually getting clicks that are performing well rather than just like random, like somebody saw it and clicked it for a second and then like went away, like they accidentally clicked it. So
okay.
the algorithm can learn, and the metrics kind of show us too as well, and that's how we kind of make a decision of like where to tweak the funnel along the way and change like the audience or the interest or the creative or the copy or aspects of the funnel. So, like you said, like when somebody comes in and they have a funnel set up, sometimes it's too many steps for Meta. Sometimes, if it doesn't have like the right budget, it won't convert for that as well as it could for like a smaller funnel. Other times, like maybe just something in the middle of the flow is like locking somebody out. Sometimes there's like too many clicks for the person to get along and they might not just end up not being interested after a while and the funnel might be too complicated. Another part of the funnel that I think sometimes can spot owners can make mistakes with is not having like a good hook in the beginning. That's still like a big priority to get somebody like interested. And usually different kind of like leads or lead magnets work better for different industries or different conversion events. Because these things have just been like tested over the years and just have kind of become like industry standards or they've changed over time. Um,
Oh,
and so,
nice.
yeah, yeah. Back like quizzes used to be
Yeah.
like a big thing,
Yeah.
not so much anymore. So,
Really?
yeah, so
I
I
didn't know
think
that. Okay.
and it also depends on what you're trying to convert, what your conversion event is, what we call like what your end goal of your funnel is. So sometimes that can still work okay, but it used to be a hotter method at the top of the funnel than it
Mm-hmm.
is at this point in time. And
That's
so I
so
think that's just a
interesting.
couple things is like just some of those unknowns that
Yeah.
and that somebody in a spa that may not be like in doing ad campaigns regularly just may not be aware of that things change.
Yeah, I think that's a hard thing to keep track of is knowing what is working and what's not. I totally remember. I mean, I had a quiz at one point for my clients, and so I totally remember that time. I had no idea that they are no longer that they were no longer all the rage.
And that doesn't mean that you can't have some qualifying questions
Mm,
in like your funnel. But sometimes it's not the top of the funnel kind of lead magnet any longer.
okay.
It also depends on like what you were trying to convert for too. Sometimes that might work better as well. Like especially like if you're like a consultant or if you're a coach of some sort, sometimes
Hmm.
those can work well too. But lately things have transitioned to like webinars where
Yes.
someone gets like a kind of like a preview of what you're going to be sharing with them. So that's where things have kind of just like changed over time. And I think that's when you're running ads, you're more just like analyzing it and improving on that and implementing that as opposed to like reinventing the wheel every time.
Okay.
Hmm.
That's so interesting. And just for the listener that is learning about this for the first time, can you describe what a lead magnet is?
Yeah, yeah. So a lead magnet is typically a tool, like something that you can implement at the top of your funnel to hook somebody into that funnel. And sometimes it can be a quiz, sometimes it can be um, like a webinar. Typically, the webinar is like after you've clicked into the ad and after you've submitted your information and after you've agreed to like wanting to get further down the funnel. But the lead magnet is usually at the top, is the item or the tool you use at the top of the funnel to be able to get people further down. And that can be customized to what you are converting and what you're optimizing for your campaign for.
Right. It's typically it's free. I have
Hmm.
seen lately a couple like and I totally I don't want to say fell for because that's not it. I got so much value out of it. So it's not like that in any way, but like I did pay, I think it was $9 for a lead magnet from a woman that I'd never met before. She was doing a webinar, $9. I was like, this is enough to have me show up live, but not enough for me to feel like I've lost anything if I don't get any value out of it. And I got so much value out of it.
Nice.
So I found that to be very interesting. I have seen a couple lead magnets that are not free,
Yeah.
but they typically are. They typically are
Yes.
free. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the other thing is sometimes people have like tiered offers for wherever you are in the client journey.
Yeah.
Um, so I think, in my opinion, just from hearing what you said, that sounds like what was going on there. And also, like sometimes in marketing groups that I'm in, that they do like I was gonna say kind of like whole marketing where it's not necessarily, it's called sometimes like fractional marketing where somebody like consults,
Right.
but they do the holistic package, meaning they like consult on the marketing, they offer the ads, they offer the organic social media, they offer just a bit of everything. Um, so in these circles where people are thinking on that kind of like higher level, like whole market scope, I say it sounds like that's part of like the client journey, and sometimes people don't necessarily need to go to like the end of the client journey and have the like highest ticket offer. Sometimes people are in a place where they benefit from like the middle offer, or even the beginning offer. So it sounds like you said like you got you, it was $9, but you still got a ton of value out of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. So j in just wrapping up this
Mhm.
conversation, what would you say to the spa owner that knows this is their next step, but might have some fear or imposter syndrome, or just maybe they think that it's only for spas with unlimited money? What would you say to that person?
I think the fear can be real because I've been in that place before, because the like whoever is in your treatment table is facilitating the ad spend that you can put out there. And so it's this like constant like balance, I think, especially when you're starting out. And so hearing like an ad spend budget just seems sometimes kind of intimidating. And I think getting familiar with Meta Ads Manager, and it does take some time, I think is like the biggest thing that can be really helpful. So it seems less scary and less intimidating, like understanding, like maybe like knowing what the metrics are, and understanding like their names. And because they're, when we say like CPC, that's cost per click, or impressions, like what does impressions mean, or what do like CTR, or because there's CTR link and CTR all. And so I think getting like a little bit more familiar with that, and then also seeing, I'd say getting familiar with that, and then familiar with what other people in your industry are doing and seeing what they're doing for ads, I think then kind of putting those two together makes it a little more demystified, and then makes you feel like a little bit more confident in then going forward and finding out what you need to do from there. I particularly work with service based businesses, and I did that because I felt like it was intimidating. I do feel like for somebody doing it on their own, I think it's great. I think after a while, it may become a little bit like a full time job for that person, especially like if they're in the treatment room and doing this too.
Hmm.
But if they're able to like step out a little bit and then like divide their time a little bit more, it may not be as like intensive in the beginning, or like over time rather. So I think sometimes like I think if you can get just more familiar with like meta ads and then see what other people in your industry are doing, then that should set you up for better confidence and success overall. And then just know that like testing is a big part of this. And so testing placements, kind of like what you were talking about, every time you see the ads like a little bit different, placements kind of like adjust the ad and move the ad around, and knowing what placements work best for your industry is always like a good thing for service providers. And so, or even just for your area alone. So I think just getting familiar, sometimes asking like ChatGPT or Claude, doing a Google search, watching a YouTube video, and just getting really familiar with these things, I think will help feel like, okay, this is like less intimidating and I'm not just putting my money in hoping for the best.
Yeah. It should be intentional. And if you're working with someone who understands that, like Pamela, then, you, the listener, is gonna feel like the money is so much more well spent.
Hmm.
And it's gonna just make more sense. You're not just throwing it into like a black abyss.
Yeah.
Um,
And
thank you so
like I said, like
much.
I love doing what I do, and that's why I like wanted to work with other service-based industries, because I felt that like void of
Mhm.
like, oh, this abyss, like what am I doing?
Yeah.
So I want to be helpful and kind of like illuminating that abyss for other people.
Yeah.
But that's what I did, but why I work the way I do and with the clients that I do. But at the same time, like even if you're not looking to work with somebody or work like with someone, regardless, I think just like having some familiarity with like meta ads will just help, I think, yeah, make that abyss seem less scary.
Yeah. Knowledge is so powerful, for
Mm-hmm.
sure. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing everything with us, Pamela. I think that this is going to really resonate with a lot of people because I know it's the next step for a lot of spa owners. Because typically when we reach out for help or when we start exploring what other options there are, it's because we've already maximized these other areas of our business. And this is one of those areas that I feel like not a lot of spa owners understand very well. And so if we kind of like what you said, just demystify it, it will make it so much easier. And it's just going to bring a lot of women because it is mainly female dominated, our industry. It's just going to bring a lot more women to the top. And I love that. So,
Yeah.
um, thank you so much for sharing everything with us today. Where can people find you and get to know you more or work with you?
Thanks. So my website is howtomarket.com. I have a lot of information there. I also am Digital Pamela Howe on Instagram, and Howe is spelled Howe. And so yeah, that you can find me if you just like want more information, or if you want more resources. That's more like on my Instagram. But if you're interested in like working with me or just getting some ideas on like what to do next, then you can always check out my website, and that's howtomarket.com, and HOWE to market.com.
Yes, and we will link everything down below too.
Oh
Thank you
yeah,
so
perfect.
much.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. If this episode gave you something to think about, please take a minute to leave a review and share with a spa owner friend. If you're ready for more support like this, I have left the link to my free 30-minute discovery call in the show notes below. I would love to learn more about you and your spa and what it is you are trying to accomplish right now in this season of life. Until next week, peace and love, my friend. I'll talk to you later.